Hi there, I'm Nancy Nash with Starfish Strength, and today I want to share a recipe with you for healthier nachos made with vegan taco meat and a zesty Pico de Gallo. So we're going to start off by making our Pico de Gallo so that it has some time to set up and really let the flavors develop and get to know each other while we're putting together the rest of our nacho recipe. So I want to wind up with about 2 to 2.5 cups of chopped tomatoes. So I'm using 4 medium vine ripe tomatoes. You could use Roma tomatoes or beefsteak tomatoes or plum tomatoes. Just make sure you use kind of the right amount of tomatoes so that you wind up with that 2 to 2.5 cup ratio. So I'm gonna wash and dry my tomatoes along with 3 medium jalapenos. We're gonna use about half a cup of chopped jalapenos. Now, if you're a person that's really sensitive to spice, you could use far less than this. I do tend to like heat. And also this is going to, combine with the other flavors in the Pico de Gallo and then be served as a topping. So I don't mind it being a little bit zestier because our taco seasoning is not going to be super heat forward. So I think it brings a pretty good balance to have a Pico de Gallo that's a little zestier. Slicing your jalapenos, I am going to recommend that you wear gloves for this just because the oil will get on your skin and then that oil could get on you. It could get on a family member or a pet. So if you have them, wear some food safe gloves. I'm going to slice off the end of my jalapeno and then I'm going to just use a paring knife to kind of score around the inside seeds and then use my paring knife to slice down the side of the jalapeno so that I'm kind of having it. So pulling it apart, hopefully that seed stem area comes out for you pretty cleanly. You could leave a couple seeds in here if you really like heat, but I'm actually going to scrape all of mine out just so that no one has to chew on any seeds and we have a balanced level of heat. From there, I'm going to slice my jalapenos as thinly as I can and then start dicing them. So I am going to try to mince these pretty fine just so no one eating this gets, a big hit of jalapeno. So I'm going to dice up 1 medium sweet onion. So I'm going to slice off the ends, peel off the skin, and then slice it in half and slice it in relatively thin slices and then start dicing it. You can always run a knife through it again to get it a little bit finer. I know some of us don't mind more rustic Pico de Gallo and some of us have really amazing knife skills and can do this really fine. So just do this to your preference or ability level. And once everything is diced to your satisfaction, we're going to set those onions and jalapenos together in a bowl at the side. And cutting up my tomatoes, I'm going to make these a little bit larger and I'm going to have those be about 1/2-inch cubes or so. So they're a little bit larger than the onions and the jalapenos. Mine are kind of cutting in thirds, I would say, just because of the size of these tomatoes. And then make sure you remove that stem area. And if this is looking a little too watery, you could always discard some of the seeds and the innards because we are going to add some lime juice to this. So next I'm going to cut up about 1/2 cup of cilantro leaves. Now you could dice these really fine. I'm leaving them more whole because I do like the taste of cilantro. Obviously, if you're more sensitive to it, you could put in less. If you don't like it at all, you could omit it. And now I'm going to mix everything together in a bowl. So to our vegetables, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of lime juice. I'm using Nelly and Joe's key lime juice because I really like the flavor of it and it's always consistent and I can keep it in the fridge. But if you have some fresh limes that are looking really good, feel free to use lime juice from your fresh limes. To that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cumin. And I'm just going to stir this pretty thoroughly, not trying to crush those tomatoes, but just trying to make sure that everything is looking pretty cohesive, pretty well combined. Once you're satisfied that everything in your Pico de Gallo is mixed well, cover that with a lid or some plastic wrap and store it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes if you can. If you can store it for an hour or two, those flavors will be even better when you go back to take a taste. Next, we're going to mix up our taco seasoning and make our vegan taco meat. So in a small bowl, I'm going to measure out 4 tablespoons of dark chili powder, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 2 teaspoons of ground chipotle pepper, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and 1 tablespoon of dried oregano leaves. So I'm just going to stir my seasoning together until it looks pretty thoroughly combined and set that to the side. So you're going to want a pretty large pan for this. I'm using a pan I have that's like 18 to 20 inches that has like 3-inch sides. You could also use a Dutch oven for this. You could probably even use a wok for this. I haven't tried that, but my pan is about that size. To that, I'm going to add 8 ounces of textured vegetable protein, also called TVP. Sometimes it's called textured soy protein. I'm using the La Fiesta brand, but there are many brands that work great for this recipe. So use whatever you can find available. I'm going to add 6 cups of water. I'm going to add the entirety of the taco seasoning that we just mixed up. And then I'm going to give it a good stir so that everything is kind of starting to disperse evenly, because this is really about getting that TVP to absorb all of this flavor. So we don't want any little pieces left out. So now we're going to turn our burner on high, and we're going to keep it on high until it comes to a boil. Usually that takes about 5 minutes. You'll start seeing the edges kind of boil, and then I'm going to give it a good stir and turn it down to medium high. And I'm going to keep it on medium high throughout the rest of this cooking process. And I'm just going to come back every 5 minutes or so, or stay with it and stir it, just to make sure again that everything is kind of absorbing evenly, because this textured vegetable protein is dehydrated. So we really need it to plump up with all of that flavored water that's going to make this taste delicious. And in reality, this is only going to take another 10 to 15 minutes. So you want to shut this off when it looks like it's absorbed about 95% of the liquid, because even though we shut it off, it's going to continue absorbing that liquid. So once it looks like it's done to you, go ahead and shut off your burner and also remove it from the heat. So now we're going to make our chips. So I'm going to give you the option here. I'm actually going to use an air fryer for this, but you could also use your oven, which is what I used for years before I had an air fryer. Whatever you're using, you want to preheat to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're using an oven, then I'm going to recommend using 2 large baking trays, either a 9x13 or like the bottom of your broiling pan, coating them with parchment paper and spraying them with non-stick spray. And if you're using your air fryer, then you probably have some sort of a basket. I'm going to spray that with non-stick spray. So I'm using 6-inch corn tortillas for this. And for a plate of nachos, I'm going to use about 10 of them. I'm going to use a large knife just to quarter them. And then you want to lay them out on your baking tray or on your air fryer basket. So I'm going to spray the top of my chips with my nonstick cooking spray. And then I'm going to bake them. And then depending on the size of your trays, for my air fryer, I'm going to do this in 2 to 3 batches. If I do this in the oven, I can probably do it all in one shot. In the oven, they usually take about 8 minutes. In the air fryer, sometimes it's more like 6. So make sure you check them at that 5-minute mark, see how they're looking. You want them to be, just a little bit brown, starting to puff up a little bit crispy. And then once all your chips are cooked, we're gonna go ahead and assemble our nachos. So the last of our chips should be just about done. Oh yeah, those look perfect. So as these have come out, I'm just trying to lay them out a little bit so that, they're not just all in a big clump, so they don't start to get soggy. We definitely want to keep them as crispy as we can. And before they cool off, I am going to top them with some refried beans and some cheese. So I'm just using about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of my favorite refried beans. You could also use whole black beans or pinto beans. Beans are such a great source of fiber and protein, so we're really going to boost that in this recipe. And then I'm topping this with 1/4 cup of reduced fat Mexican blend cheese. So you could also, just wait and top this with queso fresco at the end. That would be delicious. If you're vegan, you can just omit the cheese. And then just to make sure that our cheese melts, I'm gonna pop this in the microwave for about a minute. Perfect. Okay, so we've heated up our beans a little bit, melted the cheese. Now I'm going to top it with our meatless meat. Now, once the meat cooled, I actually went and divided it into 8 separate servings. So this is one of those servings. So I'm going to put the full nutrition information below, but this textured soy, you can see that you get quite a bit of meat, and this is 73 calories worth of meat, but it has 14 grams of protein. Great nutritional bargain. Top this, however you like. With your favorite salsa, you could use some light sour cream. I'm going to put a little bit of cilantro on here. And then I'm going to put some of that Pico de Gallo on the top. So this looks super delicious. I taste the taco meat first. I'm going to try not to get beans in this one. So if you haven't made homemade taco seasoning before, I highly recommend it. And you'll notice that we didn't put any salt in this recipe. You can definitely add some depending on your taste buds. But for me, because I know that there's salt in the cheese, there's salt in the beans, and then we put lime juice in our Pico de Gallo, which hits the palate in a similar way to sodium, that has so much flavor that I really don't need the salt. You can taste that chili powder, but you can taste more complexity because of the number of spices that we use. And because, we spent some time cooking it, but then it spent some time absorbing all that flavor while we were making our chips. I really love that textured vegetable protein really takes on the flavor of whatever you're cooking. And it does have texture. I wouldn't say it is, exactly like ground beef. I would say this is closer to like a lean ground turkey. All right, so now I'm going to get a little bit of everything, and I'm going to try to get some of that Pico de Gallo as well. That, for me, is like the perfect level of spice. And get a hit from that lime, just a little hint of garlic, and, the cumin is in there, not jumping out at you. That fresh hit of the cilantro and the tomato, such a good balance with that taco meat. And if you're trying to keep this lower carb, the other option I'm going to give you is to make this into a taco salad. So I also really like sauteed vegetables on a taco salad. I know that's kind of like a taco fajita salad, but I usually slice up an onion, a poblano, and a bell pepper kind of thin, and I saute them, with a little bit of lime juice and garlic. And I cook them like 80% of the way so that, they still have a little bit of crunch in the peppers, but the onions have kind of started to caramelize a little bit. So I let them cool completely. And then I put that on a bed of lettuce, kale, and spinach. And then I top that with my taco meat and my salsa. You could also add sour cream. You could add avocado or guac to that. Thanks so much for making time to cook with me today. If you do decide to make this recipe, I'd love to hear how you enjoy it in the comments below. If you're looking for more healthy recipes, workouts, exercises, or other healthy lifestyle help, please check out the rest of my YouTube channel. And if you need some one-on-one support putting together your exercise program and nutrition plan, please reach out to me in the link in the description. In the meantime, I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, you didn't see it, but he's over here sitting, so I gotta pay my cheese tax. Yeah. Good boy. Do you want one more? Good boy. Good boy, Max. Yeah, what's in the microwave?